Welcome to this video on the 5 vampire clans from the tabletop role-playing game Vampire the Requiem. I've received some requests to add some New World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness to the catalog of videos, so we'll see how this one does. Vampire the Requiem, published in 2004, was the successor to Vampire the Masquerade following the Time of Judgment and the end of the Old World of Darkness. 3 of the clans of Requiem should be familiar to Old World of Darkness players. 2 new clans appear in Requiem, however. But without further ado, the clans of Vampire, the Requiem. Clan Daeva. Aggressive mimicry. These 2 words describe the nightly existence of the sensual and hedonistic vampires of Clan Daeva, nicknamed the Succubi, or later, the Serpents. What the Daevas mimic is sensuality and passion, the object of a mortal's deepest desires. The Daeva offer the promise of pleasure in exchange for blood, and sometimes every last drop of it. Any wolf can chase a sheep, but a Daeva is a wolf who pretends to be a sheep and convinces the real sheep to expose its own neck. Armed with a combination of beauty, charm, and charisma, the Succubi prowl through the dive bars, concert halls, art galleries, brothels, and anywhere the cultured or beautiful people mingle, looking for fat sheep to cut from the herd. However, it's all an act. After a time, the Daeva becomes bored. There's no sport in a game you're practically guaranteed to win. Ennui, the thing that the Daeva fear even more than losing their humanity, eats away at their emotions. To feel something, anything again, Succubi turn to new sensations, usually of a more depraved and destructive nature. This wreaks havoc on their humanity, which makes them more innervated to what once excited them, leading to even more vitiation, spiraling downward into the jaws of the beast. But back up to the start. Daevas prefer to embrace from the elite of society, though not necessarily the wealthy or well-to-do. The Ventrue tend to keep a tight grip over that pool of talent. The Daeva look out for those who excite their passions, the beautiful, the witty, the sophisticated, the ambitious, and the seductive. They embrace out of infatuation rather than pragmatism. The relationship between sire and child tends to burn out quickly as the sire grows bored and the child grows resentful. Among the Daeva, status is everything. Intra-clan politics revolves around perpetually feuding cliques of vampires. Daeva elders aren't much better, encouraging conflict for their own entertainment while carrying on quarrels centuries old. Only a threat from those outside of the clan will convince the Daeva that perhaps they should unite. But once the threat is past, it's back to business as usual. A preponderance of Daeva are members of the Invictus. Jockeying for status suits them perfectly, but exerting control from behind a veil of etiquette and rules just makes the game all the more interesting. And it is a game even when Daeva aren't at the top of the mountain. There are far fewer Daeva in the Lankea Sanctum than other kindred believe, but those who are serve as some of the Covenant's best evangelists, whipping the faithful into furors of spiritual ecstasy. Generally, the Daeva have little to do with the Carthian movement. Revolution may be an exciting aesthetic, but egalitarianism is just so pedestrian, and they already sit high in the current system. As with the Sanctified, firebrand Daevas are powerful recruiters for the cause, stoking emotion to fever pitch. A few Daeva make their home among the Ordo Dracul, and are fascinated by the idea of the rewards and perils of pursuing transcendence. They do not fear dangerous experiments or pushing limits. However, the dragons tend to frown on the hedonism that sustains the Daevas, which is why there aren't more of them. Daevas who are initiated into the Circle of the Crone do so more from a rebelliousness and novelty than genuine belief. But the true believers in the Mother make this very interesting. They bring vitality to the rites of the Circle and infuse their fellow witches with a fervor for the Mother. But all Daeva are ruled by their vices. Refusing to indulge them does a Daeva more harm than good, sapping their willpower until they finally give in. Alternately, Daevas are more dependent on mortals than they would like to admit. Drinking from a particular mortal's blood too often creates emotional obsession with the mortal in question, as if the mortal had blood bonded the vampire. Clan Gangrel. All vampires are predators. But as in nature, there are predators and then there are apex predators. The Gangrel regard themselves as apex predators among vampires, and not without merit. The Gangrel have an intimate relationship with beasts, both of the zoological and internal kinds. This has given them a deserved reputation for savagery, albeit a calculating savagery. Where other vampires might rely on data or philosophy, the Gangrel tend to prefer practical experience, and the more sanguine, the better. Gangrel are rather picky about who they embrace. While the Gangrel run the gamut ethnically and socially, they all tend to share the traits of strong will and endurance. Strength of arms works heavily in a potential fledgling's favor, but is secondary. A lioness can teach her cubs to hunt, but cannot teach a gazelle how to be a lion. Every Gangrel is expected to be a force unto himself, independent, self-reliant, one who can contribute strength to any association he joins, rather than burdening it with weakness. On the other hand, some Gangrel give the embrace to those who are less than worthy before abandoning them, essentially kicking a bird out of the nest to either fly or fall. Given the looseness of the Gangrel, it is unsurprising that they have little to no clan structure. The one observance they pay to unity of the blood is the Gather, a meeting of all Gangrel in an area, or of those Gangrel who have an interest to inform their fellows of personal matters or problems that might affect the entire clan. A gather is also a prime opportunity to resolve any disputes between particular vampires, usually with fangs and claws, and moderated by the elders of the clan before either party meets final death. Curiously, the Gangrel as a clan have gotten stronger once its members stopped killing each other over matters of honor or wounded pride. Strange that. But given that the Gangrel rarely play politics themselves, they likewise tend to shun matters of covenants. A number of Gangrel joined the Circle of the Crone, which is unsurprising given the witch's fixation on primeval magic, blood, and nature. A significant number of Hierophants of the Circle are Gangrel. Recently, the Carthian movement has seen an influx of Gangrel from the Invictus to their ranks, after having suffered indignities at the hands of the First Estate. Sanctified Gangrel of the Lancia Sanctum are unusual at first glance, until one realizes that all of the beasts of God's creation exist for a purpose, and these holy savages sniff out relics and defend the faithful from outsiders. Few Gangrel join the Invictus, but those that do tend to be terrifying, bloodthirsty knights, lords, and ladies, for whom the halls of power are just another hunting ground, although the prey tends to be slightly better dressed. The Ordo Dracul is often more interested in the Gangrel than vice versa. The Gangrel's proficiency with the Protean discipline seems to confirm some of the dragon's theories about the potentially infinite malleability of vampirism. Depending on which iteration of Requiem Gangrels one deals with, the savage's beast tends to play havoc on their rational mind, hamstringing certain tasks requiring the use of their intellect or discernment. Otherwise, the Gangrel is more prone to frenzy than other vampires. Clan Mehket. The night and the darkness are the natural province of the vampire. The self-proclaimed rulers of both are Clan Mehket. To the Mehket, the dark encompasses all things, devours all things. Light does not destroy darkness, only delays its inevitable victory. Like their nicknames, the Shadows, they are often unnoticed until they fall upon their intended target. The darkness that suffuses the clan takes on 100 forms. Some Mehket are the daggers in the dark, emerging from shadows to strike down their enemies, or their employers. Others are delvers into the darkness of their own souls, who pluck out whatever insights or horrors they discover therein, and try to capture them in words, or paint, or stone. Inquisitive Mehket plumb the darkness of history, and drag it into the cold light of rational inspection, or hoard it for themselves. In all, the Mehket are a philosophically diverse clan, each walking their own path towards the end of becoming an ideal vampire. Wisdom can be found with a sword in hand as much as it can with a book. Every one of the Shadows was possessed of some dark character, even while mortal. Beyond that, there is almost no uniformity in manner, dress, or goal within the clan. Mehket sires tend to be ruthless in training their progeny, and laissez-faire in their activities beyond that. This has led to Mehket vampires being found almost everywhere, doing almost everything. The Mehket have been instrumental to the Ordo Dracul. They are the ones who locate the dragon nests and discover how to use them. In fact, it is easier for the dragons to simply point the Mehket at something and then let their natural desire to discover how it works, down to the most minute detail, do the rest. Likewise, the Lancia Sanctum fulfills a number of Mehket's need for divine purpose, and what secret could be greater than the will of God, as revealed through holy texts and relics? Many Mehket gravitate towards the Carthian movement. They bow to no one in their capacity for violence, but they are most effective as investigators and propagandists, broadcasting all of the dirty secrets of the movement's enemies far and wide. Given the secrecy involved in the practice of blood sorcery, Mehket of a more occult bent make their way into the circle of the crone. They are unlikely to shy away from the darker rites that venerate the mother. The Invictus have a precarious relationship with the Mehket, if only because the inquisitive vampires are often too successful for their own good. It is one thing to unmask the weaknesses of the Covenant's enemies, but some wonder how easy it would be for the Mehket to discover those of their allies. As unapologetic creatures of darkness, light poses a greater problem for the Mehket than other clans. Sunlight and fire, already the banes of all kindred, are especially harmful to them. Clan Nosferatu. There are damned, even among the damned. The Nosferatu are not only undead, but few can pass for human, and usually only with great difficulty, as the embrace changes their appearance, as well as their physiology. Some Nosferatu consider their newfound stealth, strength, and ability to terrorize their victims as an equitable trade for never winning a beauty contest again. Most are embittered not only by their alienation from humanity, but their general ostracism from vampire society. The Nosferatu are too useful to cast off entirely, but any courtesy they receive from their less repellent kin smacks of insincerity. Their rejection forces the Nosferatu to cleave to each other, and lair in places few mortals or vampires would, namely subterranean tunnels, basements, abandoned homes, and crypts. What influence the Nosferatu exert is usually focused on expanding and connecting their various layers without anyone interfering in their non-union construction projects. But where some Nosferatu lean into playing the monster, others prefer to become sophisticates, creating an unusual effect between an unsettling appearance and a disarming charisma. These Nosferatu use their skill at information gathering to enter the game of kindred politics, usually with juicy secrets to trade or blackmail. But what a Nosferatu cannot steal or bargain for, he can usually terrorize out of someone. Nosferatu prefer to embrace mortals of a self-reliant character. Becoming Nosferatu is not easy, even for the strong-willed or those with nothing to lose. However, there are Nosferatu who embrace their progeny as a punishment, inflicted on the malicious and the vain. Depending on the sire, this punitive embrace can differ in severity. All Nosferatu are deformed in some way. The most obvious are the physically deformed. But there is a contingent of Nosferatu whose abnormality is more of a spiritual character than physical. They may barely pass for human in low light, but they project such an air of unnaturalness that those who look at them want them gone as soon as possible. But family doesn't reject you, at least not outright. Nosferatu families vary in size, from a happy pair to a veritable tribe. Typically, the most senior Nosferatu in any warren is the leader, though skillful and effective haunts rise quickly in the clan, as long as no one tries to clip their wings on the way up. As stated before, the Nosferatu are too useful to dismiss out of hand. Invictus Nosferatu fill out the first estate as eyes and muscle, sometimes both, at the same time. Haunts who become princes are creatures of extremes. Either they are magnanimous autocrats who want to ease the existences of the disadvantaged, or they are sadistic tyrants who mean to repay every slight suffered on their road to power with interest. Those who join the Lancia Sanctum see monsters when they look in the mirror, which is the spur for them to repent for whatever sins they committed in life to merit such a heavy punishment from God. But with their twisted appearances and ability to torment others, some haunts take on the role of holy demons, punishing the wicked and frightening sinners back to the path of righteousness. The Ordo Dracul does not judge its members on appearance, only achievement. and being hideous makes it less likely that anyone will bother them as they master the coils of the dragon. Some Nosferatu rage at the unfairness of not only their condition, but the entire Danse Macabre. These twisted revolutionaries join the Carthian movement, where their talents make them natural guerrillas. Nosferatu gravitating towards the circle of the crone claim that they are not cursed, but instead blessed with the countenance of the mother and her potential for growth and change. Clan Ventrue. Some are destined to rule, and others to be ruled. Members of Clan Ventrue endeavor to always stand in the former category, especially with respect to other vampires. This makes them as much an irritation to the other clans as their schemes and fumbling for power have already long since been preempted by the Ventrue. Throughout history, the Ventrue have sought to monopolize the tools and trappings of power for their own. In the days of Rome, the Ventrue drew their embraces from the patrician class, giving them power over the Senate, the legions, the estates, and later the imperial household. In the Middle Ages, the Ventrue embraced nobles, landed knights, and churchmen to maintain their dominance. When power shifted from the feudal aristocracy to merchants and burghers, the Ventrue added the emerging commercial class to their ranks. When the keys of power passed into the hands of industrialists in the administrative state, managers, executives, and bureaucrats were favored. The Ventrue have even included crime bosses and drug kingpins among the lords, as they are not only smart enough to build complex organizations, but do so outside of the law. Which is the secret to the success of the Ventrue? Their ability to recognize trends in societies, economies, nations, and position themselves to control the next source of power before the other clans are even aware it exists. Many Ventrue have a preference for embracing from established dynasties, old money families, prestigious organizations, and the like. Others like to stay on or ahead of the curve and have brought in ingenious entrepreneurs, computer science experts, and criminal masterminds proficient in both making money and moving it around. Those selected for the embrace are educated in the importance of their blood lineages, expected to recite them on demand, as well as the boons and obligations that accompany their new status. This is how Ventrue establish status between one another upon meeting, and the Ventrue meet fairly frequently, often once a month, to discuss clan business, personal business, gloat about their accomplishments, and upbraid clanmates who appear to be slacking in their pursuit of prestige. However, the clan is not all cutthroat wheeling and dealing and politicking. One of the ironclad traditions of the clan is the duty to render aid to a fellow Ventrue, especially against the coming of the day. No Ventrue may refuse, though few claim the right. Not only is it an affront to the pride of the Ventrue who asks, but they are also indebted to the Ventrue who aids them. This duty of relief is part of the reason Ventrue maintain larger havens than they might personally need, in the event that they are called on to shelter one or two other Ventrue. Another reason is that the appearance of success is as important as success itself. This is why Ventrue go to such lengths to acquire not only wealth but its trappings, expensive havens, expensive but unobtrusive clothing, fancy cars, and other symbols that display their success and importance. To the other clans, the Ventrue and the Invictus Covenant may as well be one and the same. However, the Ventrue are nearly as well represented in the ranks of the Ordo Dracul, for the simple reason that one can hardly be said to be worthy of ruling others if he cannot first rule himself, which includes his beast. Fewer Ventrue seek power within the Lancia Sanctum, though membership among the sanctified comes as a desire to serve and guide their hematological and spiritual inferiors. Few Ventrue seek power over men and beasts through the occult, but lords who join the Circle of the Crone develop blood cults matching their magical prowess. Clan Ventrue and the Carthians seem like an odd match, until one realizes that Vox Populi is simply another avenue to power in the hands of a skilled demagogue or manipulator. Depending on the editions, either the Ventrue have a greater tendency towards derangement as their humanity declines, or they tend to have a harder time maintaining a connection to such touchstones as they might have to maintain their humanity. And those were the clans of Vampire the Requiem. The vampires in Requiem have always had a curious feel to them. They're like Masquerade, but not quite. To me, Requiem is not so much flexible as it is modular. You can excise or include certain clans, covenants, and bloodlines as the storyteller deems necessary without having to do too much jiggering or modification of lore. As stated in the book, the clans in Requiem are more akin to extended families than the clans in Masquerade, many of which functioned as organizations in their own right, to which primary allegiance was owed. As opposed to Requiem, where covenants tend to take priority over clan, some players enjoyed the de emphasis on the machinations of elder vampires and the jihad, to which I say, more power to you. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Until next time,